It's time to ghost everyone. There comes a moment in all of our lives when the weight of others' expectations, the demands of constant connection, and the never-ending noise of the world start to become too much. We are inundated by the digital world, by texts, calls, social media notifications, and the subtle pressure to be constantly available. And sometimes the healthiest thing we can do for ourselves is step back, take a breath, and disappear for a while. Boundaries are not about keeping people out, they're about defining where we end and others begin. When we set clear boundaries, we are not pushing people away, but rather creating a space where we can coexist with others in a way that is respectful to both ourselves and them. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect our emotional, physical, and mental well-being. They allow us to show up as our most authentic selves without sacrificing our peace or compromising our values. In a world that constantly demands more from us, whether through social media, work pressures, family obligations, or societal expectations, boundaries can feel like an act of rebellion. We are taught that to be good people, we must always be available, always helpful, always accommodating. Yet the truth is, when we operate without boundaries, we become depleted, we lose sight of who we are, what we want, and what we truly need. We become like a stretched out rubber band, pulled in every direction until we snap. Setting boundaries is a form of self-respect. It's about recognizing that our time, energy, and emotional capacity are limited and choosing to protect those resources so we can show up fully for ourselves and others when it matters most. Without boundaries, we allow others to dictate the terms of our lives. We allow them to decide how much of our time they deserve, how much of our energy they can take, and how much emotional labor we should provide. But when we create boundaries, we take back control. We get to decide what we can offer and when, and we protect ourselves from the constant encroachment of demands that drain us. Boundaries are also a form of self-love. They are an acknowledgement that we are worthy of respect and care. We cannot pour from an empty cup, and when we constantly give without replenishing ourselves, we end up with nothing left to give. Boundaries allow us to carve out the time we need to recharge, to focus on our own growth, and to ensure that we are living in alignment with our values. They create the space for us to nurture our own well-being, to engage in activities that bring us joy, and to invest in the things that matter most to us, whether that's our relationships, our health, or our creative pursuits. But setting boundaries is not always easy. It requires courage to say no when we want to say yes, to turn down invitations when we feel the pressure to attend, and to set limits even when we fear disappointing others. We are often afraid that by setting boundaries, we will lose love, respect, or connection. The truth is, the people who truly respect and love us will understand and honor our boundaries. They will appreciate that we are taking care of ourselves so that we can show up for them in a meaningful and authentic way. Boundaries also require us to be clear about what we need and to communicate that clearly with others. It's not enough to simply think we need space or time. Part of the power of boundaries is the ability to articulate them with honesty and clarity. When we fail to communicate our boundaries, we end up confusing ourselves and others, leading to frustration, resentment, and burnout. By expressing our needs, we create an opportunity for others to respect those needs and for us to honor our own desires without feeling guilty or selfish. Importantly, boundaries are not just about protecting ourselves from others, they are also about creating a framework for how we want to treat others. When we honor our own boundaries, we set an example for those around us, teaching them how to respect their own needs and limitations. Boundaries also foster healthier, more respectful relationships because they create mutual understanding and clear expectations. Without boundaries, we are often left feeling overwhelmed or taken for granted, but when we set them, we encourage open, honest, and compassionate communication. There is also a deeply spiritual element to boundaries. At their core, boundaries are an expression of our right to exist as we are. We are not obligated to meet everyone's expectations, to conform to everyone's wishes, or to be everything for everyone. Setting boundaries is a form of reclaiming our individuality, our autonomy, and our inherent worth. It's a declaration that we deserve to live a life that aligns with our deepest truths, without apologizing for our choices or needs. We don't have to feel guilty for protecting our boundaries. Boundaries are an essential part of living an authentic and balanced life. And while others may not always understand or appreciate our boundaries, it's not our responsibility to manage their reactions. Our responsibility is to ourselves, our health, our peace, and our sense of self. Ultimately, the power of boundaries lies in their ability to preserve our sense of integrity, peace, and authenticity. When we honor our boundaries, we create a life that is grounded in self-respect, clear intentions, and meaningful connections. We show up for ourselves, and in turn, we show up for others in a way that is thoughtful, present, and whole. By embracing the power of boundaries, we stop being reactive to the demands of the world around us and start being proactive in crafting the life we truly want to live. And that is where the magic lies, in knowing that we are worthy of the space we need, the peace we crave, and the life we deserve. So let's embrace the power of boundaries, not as a shield, but as a tool for creating a life that is truly ours. This expanded view highlights the essential role of boundaries in maintaining a balanced, respectful life and provides a deeper understanding of their importance in an era where we are constantly bombarded with notifications, messages, emails, and endless streams of information. The idea of disconnecting can feel like an act of rebellion. We are taught that in order to be successful, connected, and valued, we must always be available, constantly engaged, and ever present. But the truth is, real courage often lies in the ability to disconnect, not to escape from the world, but to step away from the noise long enough to reconnect with ourselves. Disconnecting is not about rejecting others, nor is it a sign of weakness or avoidance. It is an intentional act of self-preservation. The courage to disconnect comes when we recognize that, in order to be truly present in the world, we need to first be present with ourselves. It takes courage to turn off the constant stream of external demands and simply be with our thoughts, emotions, and needs. It's about carving out the time and space to hear our own voice, away from the distractions and pressures that often drown it out. We live in a time where the concept of busyness has become synonymous with worth. We equate being busy with being productive, valuable, and successful. But this mindset often leads to burnout, exhaustion, and a deep sense of disconnection from ourselves. The more we prioritize external obligations and social pressures, the further we drift from our own truth. Disconnecting requires a shift in how we view our time and energy. It challenges the idea that we must always be doing and instead invites us to embrace being. It encourages us to reflect on our true needs, desires, and intentions. The courage to disconnect is also the courage to set boundaries, not just with others, but with ourselves. It means acknowledging that we cannot be everything for everyone, and that it is okay to step away when we need to recharge. This act of disconnection is not a sign of neglect or irresponsibility, but an acknowledgement that we are human and that we cannot continuously give without first replenishing ourselves. By disconnecting, we protect our energy and safeguard our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Disconnecting takes courage because it often requires us to face discomfort. We may feel the pull of FOMO, fear of missing out, or guilt about not responding immediately to others. We may fear that people will perceive us as uncaring, disengaged, or distant. But the reality is that we are more likely to show up as our best selves when we are well-rested, clear-headed, and centered. By disconnecting, we create the space to return to the world with a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. In addition, disconnecting gives us the chance to explore what truly matters to us. When we're constantly plugged into the world, we're often influenced by external expectations, opinions, and societal norms. Disconnecting allows us to strip away the noise and reflect on what we truly value, what our passions are, and what makes us feel fulfilled. It's in these moments of disconnection that we can listen more closely to our inner voice, that quiet intuition that guides us toward our authentic path. But disconnecting also requires an understanding of how deeply interconnected we truly are, not just with others, but with ourselves. By disconnecting from the external world, we reconnect with our internal world. We reestablish a deeper relationship with our thoughts, feelings, and desires. We take the time to listen to our body, to check in with our heart, and to assess where we are in our personal journey. This reconnection with ourselves is not only rejuvenating, but it also enables us to show up more authentically when we do re-engage with others. There is also profound power in the courage to disconnect from technology. While technology allows us to connect in unprecedented ways, it also has the potential to overwhelm us, invade our privacy, and create false expectations of constant availability. Disconnecting from our devices gives us the space to reclaim control over how we interact with the world. It allows us to be more intentional about our attention and energy. When we disconnect from our phones, computers, and social media, we give ourselves the gift of presence. We can focus on the moment we are in, whether that's enjoying a conversation with a loved one, getting lost in a creative pursuit, or simply being still and at peace with ourselves. The courage to disconnect also means breaking free from societal pressure to be constantly engaged. There is an underlying message in many cultures that we should be productive and connected at all times, that we are somehow failing if we choose to slow down. But true productivity and success are not about endless doing, they are about conscious being. Disconnecting allows us to be more thoughtful in our actions, more intentional in our decisions, and more aligned with our values. Moreover, the courage to disconnect is ultimately an act of self-compassion. It's about showing ourselves the kindness and grace to step away from the overwhelm of life. It's a recognition that we don't have to prove our worth by being constantly on for others. We are worthy of love, attention, and care simply because we exist, not because we are always available or always doing. Disconnecting from the demands of the outside world gives us permission to reconnect with the most important person in our lives, ourselves. In a world that thrives on connection, the act of disconnecting allows us to find clarity, peace, and balance. It requires courage because it asks us to step away from the familiar, to be still with our thoughts, and to embrace the discomfort that often arises when we stop doing. But it is precisely this discomfort that is a sign of growth, a sign that we are cultivating a deeper relationship with ourselves and our needs. Saying no can be one of the hardest things we do in a society that often equates saying yes with being helpful, likable, or successful. Saying no can feel like an act of defiance. It can make us feel guilty, anxious, or even selfish. Yet the truth is that saying no is an essential part of living authentically and setting healthy boundaries. It's an act of courage, one that requires vulnerability, honesty, and a deep understanding of our own needs. When we say no, we are not rejecting the person or the opportunity. We are simply acknowledging that we cannot take on everything that is asked of us. Saying no means recognizing our own limitations, our own needs, and our own right to decide what we can and cannot do. And in a world that constantly demands more of us, that's a powerful and necessary act of self-care. At its core, saying no is a deeply vulnerable act. It requires us to step into discomfort, to face the fear of disappointing others, and to allow ourselves to be honest about what we can handle. Vulnerability is about being open and honest, even when it feels risky. When we say no, we are exposing a part of ourselves that often feels unworthy or undeserving of saying no. We might fear that by declining a request, we'll be judged, misunderstood, or rejected. We may worry that others will see us as weak, uncooperative, or unkind. But saying no doesn't make us any of these things. It simply means we are honoring our own truth. Saying no also requires us to challenge the ingrained belief that we must always be available or helpful in order to be loved and respected. This belief stems from a cultural narrative that associates our value with what we can give to others. But our worth is not determined by how much we give, how much we sacrifice, or how much we do for others. Our worth comes from who we are, our integrity, our authenticity, and our capacity to honor ourselves. When we say no, we are reinforcing the idea that we are enough just as we are, without needing to prove ourselves through endless giving. It's important to remember that saying no is not about being inconsiderate or dismissive. It's about creating space for what truly matters to us, what aligns with our values, and what we are capable of handling at any given moment. In order to say yes to the things that align with our true purpose and desires, we must first say no to the things that do not. This is not an act of rejection, it is an act of choice. We are choosing ourselves, choosing our peace, choosing our well-being. And this is something that we can be proud of, not ashamed of. The vulnerability in saying no also stems from the fear of disappointing others. We might worry that saying no will cause hurt or frustration, or that it will create tension in our relationships. This is a real and understandable fear, but it's important to recognize that saying no does not diminish our love or respect for others. It simply acknowledges that we have needs too. True relationships are built on mutual respect, understanding, and honesty. By saying no, we model the importance of self-respect and teach others that it is okay to take care of themselves too. In fact, saying no with integrity can actually strengthen relationships as it fosters clear communication and trust. The vulnerability of saying no also lies in the uncertainty of how others will respond. We can't control other people's reactions, and that can be uncomfortable. Some may be disappointed, frustrated, or upset, and that's a reality we have to accept. But the truth is, their feelings are their responsibility, just as our feelings are ours. By saying no, we are taking responsibility for our own well-being and recognizing that we are not responsible for managing others' emotions or expectations. While we may care deeply for the people around us, we cannot control how they react when we set boundaries. What we can control is how we honor ourselves and communicate our needs. Vulnerability in saying no also invites us to become more attuned to our own desires and limits. It requires us to pause, reflect, and listen to ourselves before responding to others. This kind of self-awareness is an act of empowerment. When we are clear about our own boundaries and needs, we can make choices that align with our values and create space for what matters most to us. Saying no becomes an act of clarity and confidence, rooted in the deep understanding that we deserve to prioritize our well-being without guilt. At its essence, saying no is an affirmation of our own worth. It is a recognition that we are worthy of time, space, and respect, not just from others, but from ourselves. It is the recognition that our energy, our time, and our emotional health are sacred. Saying no is not about rejecting others, it's about embracing ourselves. It is an act of self-respect, self-love, and self-care, and it is one of the most powerful tools we have in maintaining our well-being. The vulnerability in saying no is ultimately about allowing ourselves to be human. It's about embracing the discomfort of disappointing others, knowing that we cannot be everything to everyone. And it's about honoring our own needs and having the courage to protect our time, energy, and emotional health. When we say no, we are not only honoring ourselves, but we are also creating healthier, more authentic relationships with others. Saying no allows us to show up as our best selves, ready to say yes to the things that truly matter. So let's embrace the vulnerability in saying no. Let's recognize that it is not a weakness, but a strength. Not an act of rejection, but an act of self-compassion. By saying no, we create the space for yes to the things that will nourish and empower us, and that ultimately is the greatest gift we can give ourselves. In the fast-paced, often chaotic world we live in, it's easy to lose touch with who we are. We become so focused on meeting the demands of work, family, and social expectations that we forget to nurture the relationship we have with ourselves. Reconnecting with ourselves is not just a luxury or a fleeting trend, it's a necessity. It's about reestablishing a deep, authentic connection with our inner world, our values, and our desires. It's about taking the time to listen to the quiet whispers of our soul and remembering what truly matters to us. Furthermore, many of us internalize the belief that to be good people, we must always be available to others, always helpful, and always giving. We neglect our own needs in the process, believing that to take time for ourselves is selfish or indulgent. But this disconnect leads to burnout, resentment, and emotional fatigue. When we give without replenishing ourselves, we deplete our inner resources and lose the energy needed to be our best selves. Reconnecting with ourselves is an act of reclamation. It's about reclaiming our right to listen to our needs, honor our emotions, and pursue what makes us feel alive. When we reconnect with our inner selves, we can live more authentically, without the constant pressure to meet other people's expectations or fit into predefined molds. We become clear on our values, our passions, and our boundaries. This clarity gives us the courage to say yes to the things that align with our true purpose, and to say no to the things that drain our energy or lead us astray. Reconnecting with ourselves also allows us to heal. Life can be difficult, and we all go through periods of pain, loss, or trauma. During these times, it's easy to suppress our emotions, ignore our needs, or lose touch with what feels right for us. But healing requires us to first acknowledge our feelings and give ourselves permission to process them. By reconnecting with ourselves, we create the space for emotional release, self-compassion, and growth. It's in this reconnection that we find the strength to move forward, to let go of what no longer serves us, and to embrace a future that is more aligned with our true desires. Reconnecting with ourselves is not a one-time event, it's an ongoing process. It requires intentionality, self-awareness, and a willingness to embrace stillness and reflection. Here are some practices that can help foster this reconnection. Mindful reflection, taking time to reflect on our experiences, emotions, and goals helps us better understand who we are and what we want. Mindfulness practices such as journaling, meditation, or simply sitting in quiet contemplation allow us to tune into our thoughts and feelings without judgment. These moments of stillness provide the clarity we need to realign with our true selves. Spending time alone in a world that encourages constant socializing and connectivity, taking time for solitude is often viewed as strange or isolating. Yet solitude is where we can reconnect with our deepest thoughts, desires, and feelings. It's in these moments of aloneness that we can hear our inner voice more clearly. Whether it's going for a solo walk, spending an afternoon in nature, or simply enjoying quiet time at home, being alone allows us to cultivate a sense of peace and inner knowing. Engaging in creative expression, creativity is one of the most powerful tools for self-discovery. Whether it's painting, writing, dancing, or any other form of expression, creativity helps us access parts of ourselves that words cannot. It allows us to release emotions, explore new ideas, and reconnect with our joy. Engaging in creative activities is an invitation to let go of perfectionism and embrace the flow of our authentic selves. Reevaluating our values over time, our values may evolve as we gain new experiences or insights. Reconnecting with ourselves involves taking a step back and reflecting on what matters most to us at this stage of our lives. What do we truly care about? What brings us fulfillment? This process of reevaluation helps us reorient our lives in a way that aligns with our authentic values, rather than adhering to outdated beliefs or expectations. Practicing self-compassion reconnection begins with self-acceptance. We must let go of the harsh self-criticism that often keeps us from embracing our true selves. Practicing self-compassion means treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend. It involves acknowledging our imperfections and embracing the beauty in our flaws. When we are kind to ourselves, we create an environment in which reconnection can thrive. Listening to our bodies are powerful messengers, often telling us what we need before our minds catch up. When we reconnect with ourselves, we also reconnect with our physical selves. This means paying attention to our physical sensations, tuning in to how we feel after certain activities, and recognizing when we need rest, nourishment, or movement. Our bodies hold wisdom that can guide us toward the balance we need. Reconnecting with ourselves is not about finding a fixed destination, but rather about embarking on a lifelong journey of self-awareness and self-compassion. It's about embracing the ebbs and flows of our emotions, recognizing our needs, and honoring our desires. In a world that constantly asks us to do more, be more, and give more, reconnecting with ourselves is an act of quiet revolution. It is the courageous step of choosing to listen deeply to who we are, not just to who others want us to be. Remember, you are worthy of your own attention, love, and care. You are deserving of time to reflect, to heal, and to grow. And when you take the time to reconnect with yourself, you are not only strengthening your own sense of self, but you are also better equipped to show up for others in a way that is authentic, compassionate, and grounded. So, Let's commit to this journey of reconnection not as a temporary fix, but as a continual practice. Let's honor ourselves, trust in our own wisdom, and embrace the beauty of being true to who we really are. Because in the end, the more deeply we reconnect with ourselves, the more we are able to connect meaningfully with the world around us. Thank you.